Hello everybody, once again, I'm Liam Crafton Jr., aka Zorvalchan Less Than Guru, and today is kind of, while an update, one of my updates for the games that I'm playing, it kind of revolves around a topic that I've been discussing recently, and it's just one of those things where pieces kind of get put into place and you get a whole that is the outcome that you guessed, and it was correct, or at least for me and my various groups it was correct. So let's get started with the discussion of what I want to talk about with what's happening in all four of my groups. So the main thing is a combination of either a campaign setting, old school style, which the campaign, instead of your characters, one group of characters going through a long adventure plot, instead of necessarily that, having it in a central location or tied to a place or item. And the reasons for this, and the reason that's really been helpful recently, is player absences. And I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody who misses a session, because I've had to do it in the past because of certain things, whether it's medical or family or job or duties or the house caving in. Something is always out there that can prevent somebody from being able to play. And a lot of groups will have a overall type thing, like in to organize play on Wednesdays, we have a two players. If two players are out, then we kind of cancel that ongoing plot where we are doing a same group of characters make it through the adventure. But since to organize play has multiple game masters and you're allowed to have multiple characters, what we have done many times in the past, not always, but many times, is somebody will volunteer to game master. They'll say what, like maybe give us a choice or say, hey, I'll do this one if nobody's played this, and then we choose characters and then we go and continue the game. So we kind of put the one plot on hold, and then we move forward with the other one with secondary characters. And toward Eternity is taking place on our-ish Earth, core Earth. Here's Mars Video Cat. And it's just a nice way that you don't have to cancel a session if too many players. Although with to organize play, normally if three or more people are gone, then we cancel. So that's how that works there. Now for the other games, for Palladium, I've had many videos on this thing. I started off with one group moving, and then I kind of did a course correction and turned it into a town. Fall Crest was in the middle of an interior Vale, and even though I'm doing Palladium first edition rule set, heavily modified, basically it's my own rules by now, but it's in the 4th edition D&D Nintir Vale. And the middle of this vale is Fall Crest, a large town, small city, determined on what you see as the border between the two. And that means that people get secondary, tertiary characters. And I have a kind of a system on how many alternate alts a person can have. And people come in and they can play most of the time, they can play what character they want. If something appeals to one of their characters and not another one, then they can switch that. Right now we do have in Thunderspire, and that's why in my videos I started putting in parentheses what type of plot we're talking about. There are, when everybody shows up, when everybody can make it, and that's about 7 people, so that's quite a few, then we will do Thunderspire. If not everybody makes it, then we'll do something else. And they've done things like they've looked for the ghost tower, they've started a foray into the Gardmore Abbey area trying to find stuff, and there was a caravan guarding that they did. So while the one character, like every player has a character in this one plot, that only occurs if everybody shows up. If one person misses or more, we can adjust, get characters out there. And I just have a few extra adventure ideas. I have all these adventure hooks, and then we just do one of those. So if you're a game master and you have lots of dangling hooks out there, and your party seems to only be biting on these others, and maybe you want them to bite here, maybe on a day that your other players or some players, one or more, depending on the situation, cancel, then you pull out one of those other plot hooks as a one night, two night thing. So that's an alternative. So that is what's happening with Palladium. Very recently with Earth Dawn, we had a very similar situation. And this is one where the Game Master normally says if 2 players can show up, he will run Earth Dawn for us. And there have been multiple times where we've only had 3 people, again, not trying to say anything bad about people that can't show up, because it happens to everybody. And on those occasions, the rest of us still want to play. So in Earth Dawn, the Game Master is basically, I can adjust things on the fly, or give me, as long as I have somewhat of a warning, then we can do it. But what happened is then our players and the player characters started having self-interested hooks. So instead of somebody telling us what to do and us saying, okay, we'll do that, we as players, our characters wanted to do something. A couple of examples. My character is a Windling weaponsmith, and I did a task for a group of Windmasters. It's one of the mystic paths that I expressed interest in, and I told my game master about it, and he's built a few adventures that are leading me to that. And basically I need to go back to Glenwood Vale, I believe that's what it's called, the like kind of the home place of Windlings, and I could get inducted into the mystic path of the Windmasters, which is my character's goal. So while we are going there, we were in Haven, and we're going a very long ways away, kind of in that direction, not exactly, but in that direction, there was an Illusionist tower, and our troubadour in the group has stopped being a troubadour, still a troubadour. Basically got a second discipline of Illusionist, and in order to get some extra spells, decided to do a job, I guess. It's pretty much a thieving job. It was get this necklace out of this Illusionist tower. Okay, so we all go to the Illusionist tower and we get in, but this is a very big tower and it has illusions, and you think you're going up, but you're going down, and you go up and then you go back down and you're on a different floor, not the one that you were just at, and all this like maze madhouse type shenanigans. I'll say that. And so it was going to take multiple sessions to do. And in the next session, our Illusionist couldn't make it. So the rest of us plowed through into more of the Illusionist tower without the Illusionist. And we had a very fun night. It was everybody else. And the big but is it always felt like we might be missing something because our Illusionist wasn't there. My character is a weaponsmith. I can disarm traps. I have awareness, and I was checking things out. I have full plate mail, so I'm pretty sturdy, and was setting off a lot of traps, but figuring out certain things. And we were doing a lot of, it was pretty much exploring, but quite blind exploring because we did not have our Illusionist to help. And then the next week passes, and the Game Master has to cancel. Again, not saying anything bad. Please, in this video, don't think I have anything bad to say about people canceling. It happens. I'm just presenting this as a what to do if people cancel and the rest of the people want to play or can play. So, Game Master has to cancel, fine. And then the next week, the Illusionist's player also had to cancel, legitimate reason and everything. And it was everybody else, or not, a lot of other people were ready to play, but we remembered our previous session where we kind of felt a little lost without our Illusionist and the Illusionist tower. So I basically said, hey, could we set up a place? Could we just make secondary characters? Um, we'll set up a place. Game Master, you could tell us we're in the same town. You can make us in Haven, next to Parlingth, which is a horrible, horrible place. But I was really, really wanting to play, and was like, hey, could we do this? Also, in that type of situation, the Game Master only has to have one alternate adventure thought ahead at a time. And we only use these secondary characters when, for some reason, the plot stops with the others because of player absence. And then we can try out new character concepts, which is always a fun thing for a lot of players, is having multiple characters, or you get a character that you really like and you don't want that character to die, but you want to try something else. So that gives that option also. I really wanted to be an Obsidian Sky Raider to try out that. Very different than a Windling Weaponsmith. So I was like, hey, we could, if Game Master, if you're up for this, this would be my suggestion. Secondary characters, you put us in a place. So a few of us were able to get up some secondary characters, and the Game Master went full Earth Dawn on us and made us basically hired crew to an airship. So that way he can be the captain, Game Master can play the captain, and sails us around, and whenever we all can't make it, or enough people, or a plot starts going sideways, because like that would be like if I couldn't make it when we got to Glenwood Vale as my Windling, what's the other people going to do when I'm there? That's my reason. So now people can have secondary characters on this airship, do things, and if in the unfortunate circumstance where somebody dies, and we have had one permanent death, and I want to say 3 or 4 temporary deaths that we gave them a last Chad Salve, and that was able to restore them, but there is a big death. All the games I play, with sort of an exception of Torg Eternity. Torg Eternity is very, very hard for a character to die, but it has happened. But the others ones, death is something out there lurking. It's not D&D 5th edition where there's so many ways to get out of death. Death is a real thing on the table in Earth Dawn and in Palladium 1st edition, and then the next game that I'm going to talk about. So, in Earth Dawn, he gave us the being crew members, and even gave us a small little adventure, so it was really fun. And if our primary character dies, we have a secondary character that can come in that has a little bit of experience. It isn't completely new. You already have it made. The character sheet's right there. We use the Roll20 for that one, and so it's already in the system. You don't have to make up a character. You have everything ready. So that's also a really good thing, a good reason for this, and everybody enjoyed it. Now let's talk about the last game, Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark, right before I started doing this, we finished our latest session, and it was one of those things where I was looking, and Blades of the Dark is very, very new school, I'll say like newer modern gaming philosophy of the players determine most things, or the players roll almost every single time. There's a couple of maybe setup dice that the Game Master rolls, but monsters don't roll against you. Threats don't roll against you. Game Master says this is going to happen to you, and you roll against them, or if you fail in your attack against them, they might get a stab back at you or something, and there's ways to mitigate with the rules, but it's very modern ish in that concept where the players have a lot of control. There's flashbacks instead of being prepared like in old school where you had your equipment list. If it wasn't on your equipment list, if it wasn't in your backpack, you didn't have it. Blades in the Dark is very much of, we don't care what you put in that backpack. You put five items, our crew gets 2 extra, so you have 7 items. Or 3 to 5, it's basically we get 2 more. So you figure out what your load is. Today, why I said 7 is our load was medium. It's normally 5, we get 2 extra, so it's 7. We get there, and until you're pulling stuff out of your backpack because you need it, you don't have it. It's kind of in a Schrodinger's cat type thing. Is it in your pack? Is it not? You don't worry about it until you need it, and then you just say, well, I pull this out of my backpack. Very, very different, but it takes place in one city. And another thing I find very appealing to that old school style is that campaign setting of the city. The crew lasts longer, or hopefully will last longer than your characters. So if your characters are killed, which is a very, very possible, also your characters take trauma, and it's almost more likely that instead of just being outright killed, your character has so many problems that they can't continue on as a character. So then you bring in a secondary character. There's also a thing with vices. Vices is the way that you indulge yourself and reduce your stress that you gain on missions. Stress, completely opposite of Torg Eternity. Torg Eternity has shock, and all you do is take a couple of minutes, and as long as it's not environmental shock or some condition out there, it all goes away, and then you just move on. So definitely between adventures, you're all healed up. In Blades in the Dark, wounds take a while. You might have wounds. They might be getting slightly better, but you have wounds that last multiple sessions, multiple missions. You have stress that builds up, and you do not get rid of it between missions unless you do downtime of indulging in your vice. And if you go negative stress, you overindulge. You go on some bender, or you disappear for a while, or maybe you go weird, whatever your vice is, and get arrested and thrown in jail to sober up, or whatever it is. And then you can't play for a mission or two. So having secondary characters is something that a couple of sessions ago that I brought up. It was like, hey, just because this is a thing that might happen, could you throw me an extra character sheet in Roll20 so I can build a secondary character? And tonight, one of our players played the secondary character. We've come up with, I don't think it's necessarily in Blades in the Dark rules, but we came up, normally you get two downtime actions, and basically the Game Master is like, how does it sound to everybody? At least knee-jerk reaction right now, because people have multiple characters, is you get, every player gets 2 downtime, so that way you can do primary character gets 2 downtime, secondary character gets 2 downtime actions, or you split in between, which would be helpful. One of your downtimes is doing that vice, so maybe you built up a lot of stress and you haven't reduced it, and you really are like, I really don't think that I want to play this character because it's definitely going to get a trauma. Play your secondary character, but spend one of your downtimes or both of your downtimes relieving that stress off of the primary character. But lots of different ways to do it. But in all 4 of these games, it's really been something, I say recent, I mean recent meaning 3 weeks ago in Blades in the Dark, 2 weeks ago in Earth Dawn. Organized Play has been doing it like that in about maybe 6 months, beginning of the year, maybe 6 to 9 months, I'll say, in Palladium, and that's been working in every single system, all the way from a game that was developed in 1970s and published in early 1980s, Palladium First Edition, Torg Eternity 2015, based off a game that was in 1990. Blades in the Dark is pretty recent. I don't want to just give a false thing, so let me check the copyright page real fast here, because I actually got a physical book of it. 2017, so yes, it has been about 5 years, but still seems close to me. And Earth Dawn, the newer one, has been like 2014, 2015, 2017. That's Torg Eternity. Sorry, it started getting developed in 2015. So yeah, a lot of mix mash of really old games or older games with new additions and completely new games all seem to be working well with this secondary character concept, and if you place it in the same city, the same area, etc., then you can swap out characters. If character dies, very easy to introduce to the group. So basically that's what I have to say. Do a whole big update, as well as the advantages of secondary characters and advantages of the campaign setting system. So having said that, I'm not against mega adventures. We're doing when worlds collide. It's just sometimes if you get hung up, having secondary characters, being able to do something. Also, board games, you can have, there's lots of other things that you can do with the same people, minus a couple to do. But if everybody is really, like on every other Friday, I really want to play Earth Dawn, so now I get to play Earth Dawn. Or people really want to play Palladium, we'll play Palladium. Blades in the Dark, Torganized Play, and Torg Eternity, etc. So, having said that, once again, I am Lee McCrafton Jr., aka Zorvalchan Less Than Guru, and until next time, I will catch you later.